Hi, it's Deborah Hamilton, and you're here for the MAAP community call, which addresses how to make plans for your pet long-term, short-term, if something happens to you. It's not all about your plan and your will. It's actually about so much more. And I started doing these Wednesday nights for 30 minutes, so not a long time commitment, but you walk away with so much information that you then get little tidbits that you can apply and that you can start thinking about how to make a plan for your pet. So I'm an attorney, a mediator. I have the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. And of course, I have this wonderful community that I help address how to take next steps with your pet if something happens to you. So we've had people come through who have dogs that are naughty and needed help getting them to be a little less naughty. I've had people come through who have some of their best caregivers move out of state and try to navigate how to find new caregivers. I myself moved out of state, and now I have to find caregivers and veterinarians. How do you do that? That's like such a stressful thing to have to do. But you do have to do it because your pets are counting on you that if something happens to you, there is someone there who's going to care for them. So without further ado, I'm going to check in with Sally. How are Athena and Roxy? I know Athena decided to make a hotspot today because she could. And so how's that working?
We're great. We get
Muted.
up very early and walk very early.
You're muted, Sally.
I'm
That's
so
right.
sorry. Yeah, really? I always do that.
Nope, you're still muted.
How's this? Nothing?
Oh, you're not muted. Are you muted? No.
I don't know.
Good. You're good now.
Okay, so we walk early in the morning and before it gets roasting and hot and humid. And you can sit, I have, two older dogs. I can sense when it's time to turn around. We turn around, come back, they eat after their walk, and they're great in the AC, and then they run out, assuming it's that cool outside. And that's not the way.
And then the curtain falls.
The curtain falls. So we just kind of.
Hi, Sally.
Hi, Jim.
Oh, hon.
How are you?
We're great. We're great.
You taking care of our daughter?
We're taking the very best care of her. She's spoiled rotten.
Good.
Yeah.
Is Gordon going to go to the air show?
I think he's thinking about it.
There you go.
There you go.
I'm sorry, everyone. That was my husband who decided to bomb the Zoom bomb my community call. My apologies, but
Zoom bomber.
He's a Zoom bomber. Sorry about that. You never know.
Yeah, we're great. I've got two older dogs, and I just have to be very, very sensitive about how long they go out, come in, rest, and the air conditioning, and a lot of water, and a little bit less food. So,
and I think you're also using some cooling blankets, which really help. You just found out about those, and for the older dogs, that makes such a difference.
It's a huge difference, Deborah. We have cooling collars and cooling blankets. They're both in the freezer. And when we come in from these walks, I put them on and they just calm right down. Yeah. And it's a big, big difference. So,
and even if you can't afford the fancy ones, you can just wet a towel, put it in the freezer, and then when they come back from their walk, let them lay on it because it's their belly and their back. So you can let them lay on it, or you can throw it over them just to cool them down, even if they don't look. I mean, I have to tell you, I was out to dinner on Sunday and there were two beautiful golden retrievers. And here in North Carolina, the humidity is probably 125%. So the dogs were in shade. They did have water, but they're panting to beat the band because unlike us, they're wearing winter coats. So they have these coats, we know golden retriever coats. And although the people were doing the best they could to keep them cool, they would have done better. And we always have to think about this. Yes, in Morehead City and Beaufort, North Carolina, you can take your dog to almost every restaurant. But if it's so hot outside. Should you? That's the question. You have to make that decision. And you have to make that decision for their benefit, not for your benefit. Maybe don't go to lunch if you forgot and took them with you, or drive them home, or it makes a big difference. And they were really miserable. I would have been happier if they took like an entire bucket of water and soaked the dogs, or brought towels with them and put it over the dogs with ice water or something, because then the dogs would have been cooler. I didn't get up and say anything, which was really hard for me. But I really, I was very worried about the Goldens, because you don't want to be confrontational, and you want to really give people the suggestions. So if anybody has a Golden Retriever out there who's listening to this now or later, remember that if you do have to take them with you and you are going to go sit outside on a hot day, bring some ice towels in a Ziploc, and when you put them in the shade, throw the ice towels over them. It is the most important thing, and simple to do. Just keep it in the ice chest in the back of your car, take them with you, and then the dogs will be cool. Judith, it's so good to see you. How are you?
I guess doing okay. Just hot where I'm at. I'm in Colorado, so so it's really been hot out here, and my dog's upset because I leave them at home a lot.
Yep. I mean, they're sad, but they're happy because at least they're in a little bit of cooler area, right?
He gets anxiety, separation anxiety, so he's a little upset. But unless I know I can keep him cool, like if I know I'm just gonna go, like say down at the gas station, like right where, and we have like a covered thing where it's shade. Takes me like 3 minutes to go in and out, then to the park and home. That's about the only time I take him.
Yeah. I mean, that's smart, because even though he's a little dog, it really is, heat impacts them incredibly. So I'm so glad you're doing that. And I hope today, if you have any questions for me regarding the MAP plan, how to make the plan, how to find the people who are going to be caregivers. What's his name? He's so cute.
His name's Dude.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
well,
Hi, Dude.
Well, that's the name that I got him from the rescue, from the animal shelter.
Right.
Years ago, he's 14, and so that's the name he had when we got him. So I thought, he's 8 years old. He's used to the name when we got him. So now he's 14. So just leave the name that he had.
Absolutely. That is so good. And that's a wonderful story. So making sure the Dude has a path and navigates a journey if something were to happen to you short or long term is why we're so glad you're here, because we never know. I had a friend who was at a dog show a few weeks ago and suffered from heat stroke, and had her dogs been with her, she would have really needed to have a plan for the care of her pets. And so we as humans have to understand that we really do need a plan to take care of our pets if something happens to us, God forbid.
And that's one of the reasons why I got an older dog, was because they don't get adopted as quick. I'm getting up there in age, so I want to make sure, that
you both stick around together.
Yeah, so
good for you. Thank you. So I'm so glad you're here. And think of some questions for me. I'm going to check in with Susan now to see how she and Maggie are doing. Susan, how are you and Maggie?
We're doing okay. We started Maggie with the Calming Care probiotic last week. And
because she has a little separation anxiety as well.
Oh, tremendous. Unbelievable. Yeah, we have gates up now, but you couldn't even get out of the house before. We put her in a crate before we leave, but I mean, it was just unbelievable. Anyway.
Well, I'll explain to Judith that this was a pandemic puppy, so she wasn't able to get out as much, be socialized as much. So she has a little bit of a hitch in her giddy up, so to speak. And we've been helping Susan with the help of Kathy Madsen from Pet Preventavet to try to work Maggie out of her issues. So it's been wonderful as Susan comes, and Susan's still trying to put up her piece of paper that says in case of emergency. Is it up yet, Susan? I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm so sorry to admit it.
No, it's not. It's, I do it in good nature, and I hope you take it that way. But the one thing that should always be on your refrigerator in your house, easy to see in case, God forbid, something happens to you, is the name of the person who's going to take your dog, cat, bird, horse, fish, in the event something happens to you. Just put it on the fridge. I mean, no, is it pretty? No. I'm going to have a new kitchen here in North Carolina, and I'm going to have a piece of paper on that fridge saying, in case of emergency, please call these 3 people to come and get my dogs, because don't take them to animal care and control. Because as I've said before, if they take them to animal care and control, you may never see them again. Because if
No, and I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. It's just identifying the right person, and also,
well, your breeder would always be the person who you call, because I'm sure the contract you signed, she already took on that responsibility. So that would be the first person. And if
she's not close by, though. She's about a 2-hour drive away.
Okay.
So
It's okay. They'll call her and say, and then she'll say, yes, I'll be there. And then, of course, your son and your husband might be able to make it. And then there might be a groomer or a neighbor who could just check in. So
yeah, I'm
really
building some new relationships with another veterinarian, and they're going to groom Maggie. And so maybe I'll make some connections there. Right. I did warn them about her. And well,
that's good. You always have to be honest, because you don't want her to nip somebody and say, oh my God, she's never done that before. After shoes on and everyone.
She's in terrible condition, but she needs to be groomed.
Yeah.
And I warned them, and since it's at a vet's office, I figure they can probably handle it.
Hopefully. Yeah. So good to see you again. So I'm going to check in with Kieran. Kieran, how's everything going? I've seen you twice today.
Yes, twice, second time, right?
So Kieran and I are members of a group called Rebound Dog that help dogs and people who are homeless connect with each other and find better things to facilitate homeness, not homelessness. So we try to keep people top of mind to care for, as well as animals who are homeless top of mind to care for. A great group of people. I was really interested to meet everyone at the social today. And it just really makes such a big difference to talk to people who are out there helping homeless animals. I always say that we all have to be kind to everyone, even the people who have to give up their animals. So it is a double-edged sword. So I'm so glad everyone is here. Tonight, I wanted to chat a little bit about how do you find that sneaky, subject that Susan alluded to, because it is, I've had 4 clients this week who called me and said, but Deborah, I have no one who is going to come and take care of my dogs. I have a friend who would leave her dogs with someone, and she's very persnickety, and that person would never let her pay the person to care for her dog. I know somebody who's like that as well. However, she feels really terrible and won't leave the dog with this person anymore because of it. And she's now looking for someone else to care for the dog. And she said, I just don't know how to find that person. And so the MAAP plan stands for certain things. So for everyone's reminder, the M stands for you have to sit down and make the plan. So how do I want my dog cared for, my cat cared for, my animal cared for, if something were to happen to me, short-term, long-term? Would I want somebody to take them forever? Or would I want someone to take him or her and just hold them until I got better? Where would that be? What kind of money would I set aside for that person to buy dog food or to come and get the dog, gas money or whatever it is that they need? How do you do that? How do you put that plan together? Then, of course, if the dog gets sick while I'm sick, right, you have to tell the vet. So you have to then address the needs of the pet. So you make the plan. You have to address the needs of the pet. So as Judith said, her dog really suffers from separation anxiety. Susan said her dog nips people and has separation anxiety. Sally said her dogs are perfect. However, I know one who just licked a huge hot spot in the middle of a humid summer, which will take forever to heal. And also, they have their quirks, the older girls. Kieran thankfully has just a rent-a-pet right now. He's providing a service for another. He's one of the people, I guess, on that person's MAAP list that if something happens and I need somebody to watch my dog, there's Kieran. So you have to address the needs of the pet, and I hope they gave you all the needs of the pet, Kieran, so you knew what you were getting. And then you have to appoint caregivers. So Kira's a caregiver. Sally's a caregiver for one of my dogs. Susan is still looking for a caregiver. Judith, I don't know if you have caregivers lined up, but it's always good not only to line up a family member as a caregiver, but also someone else, because if God forbid you or a family member gets sick, you're going to need that third person, that other person to come in and take care of dude, so that he knows the person, isn't totally unfamiliar with the person, and that person knows dude and knows sort of his routine, so that you can keep his routine as best you can if something happens to you or a loved one and you have to go to the hospital. I mean, now with COVID, sometimes people go into the hospital and never come out, or come out a long time later. What happens to their pets? I have to tell you that we've been talking about this since the beginning of COVID, and sometimes people came out and their pets were gone because they'd been adopted, and there was nothing they could do to get the dogs back or the cats back. So we really do have to be proactive. So let's see, the MAAP stands for Make a Plan, address the needs of the pet. So you have to talk about what the pet needs. Appoint caregivers. There has to be 3. I hate to say it, but it's really the best. I have a friend who said, my God, I went through 3, Sally. I went through all 3 of my caregivers and none of them could take care of the dogs. I said, yes, then you need 5. So I know I tell people 3 and they go, I'll never need 3. And I go, oh yeah, trust me. It is Murphy's Law. If something happens to you, 1 or 2 of your caregivers are not going to be able to help you. And I say that from a voice of experience. I broke my ankle and I called my 2 friends who were supposed to take my dogs. One had just broken her wrist and the other one was demolishing her kennel. So the amount of room she had to take extra dogs was diminished by half. And so she couldn't take my dogs. So that's why I wrote this program, because I was the person stuck with 9 dogs and no one to care for them. And I had a broken ankle. Really, we rise to the occasion, but wouldn't it have been nice had I not been so stressed and worried for those first 2 or 3 or 4 weeks when I wasn't as mobile? And then the last letter is P. And you might say, well, what's P stand for? Well, it means you have to publish that plan that you make. So if you appoint Kieran or Sally or Judith as your caregiver, you have to let them know that you've appointed them a caregiver. You got to let them know what the persnicketies of the pet are. That's, give them a piece of paper that says this dog is, afraid of being left alone, afraid of thunder and lightning, doesn't like the heat, whatever it is, takes this medication. You have to leave them with information on addressing the pet, but also you have to let them know about the other caregivers, because I might call Sally and she goes, my God, I can't. Or someone might call Sally from my little piece of paper on the fridge and she's going, oh my God, I can't get there. Like Susan's breeder, she might not be able to get there, but Susan knows that if she has an owner close by, she can send that owner close by to go and get the dog and maybe meet her halfway to the breeder to get the dog. So you always want to say, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. And then they know each other. So I know I can't do it, but I know Susan and Judith are the other 2 people on Sally's list. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'll be there, so the police don't think that they should take the dogs to animal care and control. And then I'll reach out to Susan and Judith and say, guys, I can't go. Can one of you, and I'll get the dog tomorrow or the next day. I mean, that has happened so often to me. One of my owners broke her ankle in the middle of the field. My dog actually broke her ankle, tore all her ligaments, almost detached her ankle from her leg. He does a good job. We were going to register him as break a leg, but she wouldn't let us register him as, rum raisin break a leg, because he was only probably 9 months old and he did such a good job. But she was in the middle of the field and she said, I was like, I've got the MAAP plan. It was really weird. I should have videotaped her. She goes, I've got the MAAP plan. I'm going to call my next door neighbor and he's going to come get my car. And then I'm going to call Deborah and she's going to come and get the dogs. And then everything will be fine. So that's what happened. And within 36 hours, the dogs were all safe. And she was in the hospital having surgery, coming home. And then the dog she wanted to come home with her to do her rehab with her came home. And then the other one stayed with me. So this is a plan you need to have, or those dogs would have gone to animal care and control if she didn't have all that information at her fingertips and, aware that that was what was going to happen. So that's why we have these meetings every Wednesday. And Judith, I'm going to let you in on a secret. Kieran here has started the most wonderful book called One-Eyed Leo. He wrote a book on responsible ownership, and that's why we love having him here, because he helps owners understand. Well, he helps almost owners, people who don't have dogs yet, or people who had dogs and don't remember what it's like to have a dog. I love when you said, I like to take older dogs because I'm older and they're older and we get along well. Well, I like to take older dogs because then you don't have to go through the destruction stage that all dogs go through. We were on a call, right, today, Kieran, where what was her name? It might be here. She said that there's the 18-month-olds that destroy the house. And she comes in and helps people when the dogs between 6 and 18 months are
Billy.
mischief makers. Yes.
Billy Groom.
Billy Groom, right? She said, I come in and help them. And I said, God, if they had read One-Eyed Leo, they would know that they needed to really be religious for the first 6 months so that the dog had a good dictionary in its brain to know what it's supposed to do. Yeah, it'll step out of line every once in a while, but if you spend the first 6 months you have that dog, I always tell people who take my puppies home, you're going to take it home at 3 months. Spend the next 3 months making sure that you are gentle and guiding this dog. Every time it does something that you don't like, stop it. If it does something you do like, reward it. And by the time it turns 10 months old, 12 months old, when it starts to be naughty, it doesn't have the same amount of information, right, Kieran? If you start when they're young, you're going to have a better dog going older. I don't know, Judith, if when you got Dude, he had naughty habits, but maybe not. Maybe he was perfect. Kieran, what do you think about that?
Okay, I think you sort of skipped to the middle and then to the end, Debbie. So basically there's a principle called the rule of threes. So
Yep.
if you get a dog and you bring it into your house for the first time, so this can be a neighbor's dog or from a shelter or wherever, first 3 days, total peace. So it's sitting there wondering, which planet is this and how did I get here? And then, so it's totally confused and it will sleep a lot. So first 3 days, the people in the house should move as little as possible and let the dog sleep as much as possible. Then the first 3 weeks after the first 3 days, the dog will be sniffing around and trying to figure out who are these people and who are the visitors and how does this whole system work. And then it takes another 3 months before the dog reaches the peak of confidence that, yeah, this is where I should be.
Yep.
So just quite simply the rule of threes.
Yep. I always say when puppies go home, I said, listen, they're going to be the best dogs you have on earth for about 3 weeks until, like you said, Kieran, mine take a little longer. 3 weeks, they'll do the I'm tired. They'll do the I'm investigating in about 3 weeks time. And then once you love them because they're such good dogs and they aren't ripping your house apart, and how wonderful are these puppies, then the other shoe drops, the Hellion comes in, and that's the stuff that when they're little like that. So, I usually let my dogs go between 12 and 15 weeks. So you have till 18 weeks of bliss while they're figuring you out and you're figuring them out. And then from 18 to about 36, you have to decide whether or not what they're doing, eating the garbage, crying when you leave, chewing on your hand, whatever it is acceptable. And if it isn't, then you have to gently, and there's so many trainings now because of COVID online, gentle trainings, especially if you know what kind of dog your dog is. Some dogs can take a little bit more determination in your correction, and some dogs can't. And so you have to know what your dog responds to. Some trainers love to feed and reward for good behavior and just ignore bad behavior. Others like to correct for bad behavior and not reward for good behavior. It's whatever works for your dog, really, not what works for your trainer. It's what works for you and your dog. If you want to give your dog a treat when it's a good dog, go for it. If you want not to give your dog a treat, because they tend, especially if you get a dog like Judith did, which was a little older, who might get fat if you treated it every time it did something good, then that might not be perfect. But you really want to, as Karen said, it's the threes. So it's 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months.
Yeah.
Making sure that you keep your pets aware of what you want. They really are looking to you for direction. That's why making the MAP plan is so important, because they're looking at you for direction. And if you disappear, what kind of directions did you leave, so someone can then follow your direction for the care of this pet going forward. Connie Kohler, who is usually a visitor here every week, she's at a dog show in San Diego. She sent me a post, which I reposted on Facebook, where these two phenomenally beautiful young Mastiffs. So those are 150-pound dogs. Beautiful. They're like 3 or 4 years old. The owner got sick or got hurt or whatever, and she can't take them back. So they're with their groomer, and she used to groom them all the time. And she said, they're the sweetest dog. They're the loveliest dog. They've been together since they were puppies. Will anyone be able to take 2 full-grown, happy-go-lucky, but slobbery mess Mastiffs into their home? You might be able to take 1, 2 is a lot. And you really have to know the Mastiff breed, really, to take on that, or at least have the guidance of someone who knows the Mastiff breed if you're going to take on those dogs. Because they're going to want to be a part of your life the way they were a part of their own owner's life. And hopefully she had them really well trained, although it seems from the groomer that they were, but she didn't make a plan. And I find in my travels, when talking to people, what they usually say, and I don't know if it's true for you guys here, and before we go, I'm going to ask you, is your plan, I told so-and-so what to do with the dog, and they're going to take care of it. And if that's what you've done, that's better than nothing, great. But if you told so-and-so, please put it down on paper. I've told so-and-so to give my dog, or to take my dog, or to do whatever it is you told them to do with your dog. Give it to your veterinarian, give it to your attorney, give it to your family, so they know what you want to have done with your pet. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I have people who have given dogs to kennels, and then something happened to them on a trip, and somebody came to the kennel and said, oh, by the way, Deborah told me that I could come and pick up her dogs. Well, unless they have a piece of paper at the kennel that they left the dogs at when they went on vacation, those dogs aren't going home with Sally. They had to have a letter at the kennel to release those dogs to Sally if something happens to them. And we don't think of these things. We don't think of making contingent plans just in case, what if? And I know that One-Eyed Leo talks about every single one of the pieces of what if before you get a dog. What if? How is this going to impact your life? How is the cost going to impact your life? How is the time going to impact your life? How is the communication within the family about the animal going to impact your life? Just really incredible. And Judith, if you want to be part of the One-Eyed Leo, just I think, Kieran, can she just look up One-Eyed Leo on the internet and find him?
Sure. Yeah. Should be no problem at all.
So it's oneeyeddleo.com.
It's doginternetofthings.com, but if you put in One-Eyed Leo in Google, it should come up.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be great, because that's something that I think everybody should read. It's one of the greatest books I've ever read, that I'm thrilled to have been a small part of. And then I talked about Hector, bringing you all here tonight. He's an Irish setter whose owner couldn't take care of him anymore. And, people are looking for a new home for him. So there's nothing wrong with that. And you can have a rescue. I think last week, Connie and I suggested that the last person in your list of people to think about is a rescue. So Judith, for you would maybe call the rescue where you pick Dude up and say, if something happens to me, I'd like, you to take Dude and rehome him if you could, and see what they say. In fact, your adoption agreement might require you to do that. But if it does require you to do that and you have a family member or a neighbor who loves Dude, who could take Dude, then what you want to do is just let them know, listen, I know that I'm supposed to return him to you, but guess what? The neighbor loves him, and they're more than willing to let you know when they take them if something happens to me, because, there's some contractual issues there that you have to really pay attention to. So whether you're Hector who's looking for a new home, or you're the two Mastiffs who are looking for a new home, no criticism of anyone who doesn't make a plan for their pet. But if you come to this community every week, you're going to learn little tidbits about how to make small changes in what you do so that the safety of your pets is assured. Note on the refrigerator, God forbid somebody comes in, note on your refrigerator that says, in the case of an emergency, please call one of these 3 numbers to take Athena or Roxy. In your car, in case of emergency, I have a dog at home. And please call one of these 3 numbers to let them know I've been involved in an accident and I need them to take care of my dog. Or if the dog's in the car with you, God forbid, and you're injured. In case of emergency, please call one of these 3 numbers and they'll take my dog. Just bring the dog to the sheriff's office or animal care and control and give them the name and number of the person who can come and get the dog out of animal care and control, because that's what you need to do. You need to create that. So before I wrap up, let me start with you, Sally. How's everything going over today? This was a pretty chock full half hour.
Everything's great. It's sort of interesting listening to you and Kieran talking about the puppies. I think it's judging from, I just picked up Roxy in June. I'd say it's the same amount of time for older dogs to get adjusted. The 3 days, the 3 weeks, the 3 months. I was actually very surprised to hear you saying that about puppies, because I have the same experience with Roxy, the older dog who's visiting us.
And I'm sure that Judith, you might have had the same issue with Dude when he came in. He had the 3 days where he was sort of wondering, and then 3 weeks where he was exploring, and then 3 months where he was testing.
It wasn't too bad, but I think I've had some very rare situations with the last few dogs over the years I've had that they really don't fit in anywhere. I really got lucky with a lot of areas. With Dude, he had like a couple bad habits that, since I already knew about dogs already throughout my life, I was able to handle and had him out of it within a day or 2. Yeah. And then other things are just things learning him, where with whatever they did to him when he was with them, I learned that loud noises, you can't raise your voice. It freaks him out. He might pee, have it, whatever. So anyway, I just learned, what was what, but
it's a mutual understanding.
Yeah. And once the cat gave him one smack in the face, like, I'm boss, I've been here for 20 years. You only been here for a day, that sort of.
Yeah, we love when the cats teach them something new, that's for sure. Absolutely. Susan, how about you? Today was pretty chock full, and I know we're still going to get you to put that up on your fridge.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I could probably identify 3 backups, and it wouldn't be, maybe I've developed some sort of blockage where I feel I can't ask anybody, but I think, Stephanie Davis, she was the breeder.
Yep.
If I can develop a relationship with the new groomer, and then finally the foster possibility, that would be 3. And so that would be a start.
Absolutely. And you know what? You just need 1 right now. 2 would be great. 3 would be fabulous. And if they know there's somebody else on the list, people are more likely to say yes. If they know there's somebody else on the list that if they can't take it, they can call Sally or they can call Kieran. So it's always great to let them know that there's someone else.
Absolutely.
And they work.
Yeah, so I need to develop sort of a spiel of how I'm going to
Well, that's what we're going to talk about in October when we do the workshop. We're going to talk about the spiel. How do I talk to the person to take my dog? God forbid they need to. Well, it's a short-term, long-term thing. So if God forbid, you're not coming home, then that's one conversation to have. And if God forbid, like me, you're clumsy and you break your ankle or you have your hip replaced, well, that's a certain number of weeks that you need assistance. And so those are two different conversations. And, I might buy in to take the dog outright because I really don't want to have to go back and forth, or I might buy in to do it a few weeks because I have my own dogs and I don't want to take another dog on. So really it's worth having that conversation, and it's not as hard once you start. And you know what I always found? So Judith, you haven't heard the story, everybody else has. So when COVID hit, I realized that all of my caregivers were out of the state of New York where I used to live. And Governor Cuomo refused to let anybody into New York during COVID. So all of my caregivers, if something happened to me, if I got COVID, couldn't come in and get my dogs. So I said, well, this really stinks. I don't have any of my caregivers. So I walked around my neighborhood, like a 4 or 5 block radius. I identified everyone who had a dog in the neighborhood. I put a 3x5 card in their mailbox and said, in the event something happens and you need to go to the hospital or you get sick or a family member gets sick, this is my name, this is my number, this is where I live. I'm happy to come and take care of your dog. And that's all I said. Sign my name and address, telephone number, blah, blah. I had 15 out of the 20 people come back to my house, thank me very much, and then offer to do the same for me. So it just simply is to reach out, to the neighbor down the block, to the neighbor next door and say, listen, if something happens to you, I watched this woman on TV, on video last night on a Zoom call, and she said, why don't we do this? And, it's not long term. It's just that until my family comes, until my friend comes from North Carolina, could you take care of the pet? And usually that works really well because people say, yeah, I could do that. Because if you're going to do it for me, if I get sick, sure, I'll do it for you. Only once did I have someone say, because I usually say, if you go to a dog park, ask the people at the dog park that your dog gets along with. Would you, I'd love to take care of Fluffy. If something happens to you, would you take care of Snuffy? And only one older gentleman said, well, he plays with a really young dog because the puppy was a young dog. And the guy is a young guy. He goes, but I don't want to take care of that guy's dog. I want him to take care of my dog, but I don't want to take care of his dog. And I said to him, I think that'll be okay. I said, I think he might have somebody to take care of his younger dog, but since his dog gets along so with your dog, it might work. So does anyone have any questions right now for me so I can answer it before I let you guys go? Anybody? So remember, we're having the meeting of the clan for a weekend to really get the written stuff done. It'll be the third weekend in October. Rose is going to send out a flyer coming up soon. It's worth every penny that you pay because I spend 2 hours with you on a Friday and 2 hours with you on a Saturday. And by the end, you have your plan written. So until next week, I am so glad all of you are here. Thank you so much. It's Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community. Remember, make a plan for your pets. They're counting on you to navigate their journey. And until next time, kiss your pets for me. Bye now.